the suppression, the use of marijuana.
Can't tell the difference between my ears.
Well,
and-
how's your ear doing this time?
It's still being weird.
Okay.
I told you that I can't get in until September.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to just let my eardrum that is torn heal and hope that it's healing properly so
Great.
that I can hear again. But it's being weird because it's a hole in my ear.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But yeah, they're not letting me. It's not that they're not letting me, but they have that weird scheduling where that's like, well, we'll get you in sometime in the year.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I hate having Medicaid for that reason.
Yeah.
They're like, you'll live.
Probably.
Or I could just have really crappy hearing for the rest of my life.
Uh-huh. That's
Yeah.
not scary at all.
No, it's my good ear.
I'm so
That's
sorry.
so frustrating.
Does it feel really cold?
No.
Oh, because I had a very, very itty bitty tear in my eardrum once, and it made my ear feel like really cold because air was like getting past my eardrum.
No, that's wild.
Yeah, so
Oh,
it was
I
like,
hate
it was
that.
cold.
No, mine feels like there's liquid in it all the time.
Oh, that makes me want to die.
Yeah, it's awful.
I
had
hate all of these things.
a cotton ball in my ear to block out all the extra sounds because instead of sounding just like the annoying extra sounds, it was like feedback looping, and I could feel it in my bone.
Yeah, I hate all of this, and I am just currently very appreciative of my two working ears.
Yeah.
Knock on whatever wood I can find.
Everyone, take care of your allergies because
Take care of your allergies.
your body's all connected.
Yeah, this was new fear fully unlocked when you told me.
It's traumatizing. I will always be taking allergy medication now.
Good.
One time I went to the doctor because I was like, I didn't have any balance.
Oh yeah.
And
That's all a part of
so,
that.
Yeah, and so they like did the thing where they like shoot water into your ear.
Oh my God, I love that though.
Except it didn't push anything out and all the water got stuck.
No, new fear unlocked
Yeah.
again.
So
No
then I
doctor's
had
allowed to come near me with
Then
anything
I had
like that.
to buy the special drops that dissolve earwax. And so you put the drops in and you lay like that for
Yeah,
like 10
yeah,
minutes
yeah.
and then you do the water thing.
Oh,
And then
this is all.
it was terrible.
God. Ugh.
Yeah. Had
Ears-
a panic attack. in the
Ears are
doctor's
such
office.
sensitive little beings, and I feel like we're not informed enough, except for like when it comes to sound. It's like, hey, don't play music too loud. But actually, everything could destroy your ear.
Yeah, literally.
Just by happenstance.
A stuffy nose.
So awful.
Mm.
But it doesn't hurt. It's just weird now. Yeah. Yeah. Well, how do we start this again?
We're the ADHD queens.
Yeah.
I'm Jamie. No, wait, we do it in the other
It's
order. I'm Jamie.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Tia.
And we're the ADHD queens. Woo.
We have been doing this for almost 2
2
years.
years.
So we're still not.
It's fine.
We're fine.
We have ADHD.
Yeah, we do.
And like
It's-
a lot of
it's in the
shit going
title.
on.
And like a lot of shit going
We
on all the
actually
time.
all
This
have
was
a lot of
Pride Month.
things.
This was like this last weekend was Pride weekend. So
I didn't even get to participate in most of Pride, and it was still so stressful.
yeah,
Just getting through everything.
I was so busy every single day.
The heat didn't help.
I've told everybody, my sister asked me if I wanted to go do something. It was like a friend was in a play and she was like, do you want to go see it? And I was like, is it during Pride Month? I'm not free.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No.
That's why I'm glad that Omaha Pride is in July. Like, it sucks that
Yeah.
it's like weird and out of like the
Context?
normal- yes.
Yes.
But it does make it nice that I can like do other things.
That's true. I think the reason that this Pride is especially difficult for me is because at the end of the month, I'm trying to do this market. So I have to make all this stuff during Pride Month in addition to doing everything I already do. And then try to sell for 8 hours or like
Yeah.
5 or 8 hours on a day. I did sign up for this. So
Yeah.
that's the problem, though, is I think I can do things.
And sometimes you can.
Sometimes.
And I think that that's important.
That's the thing that gets me in trouble, is that sometimes it is successful.
Yeah. So then you have to just like keep trying every time just in case.
Just see which one it is that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's infuriating.
All right. We read a book.
We did. Ryan, what book did we read?
We read The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafon. I once again picked a book that does not follow along in chronological order.
That is correct.
You have a good
But they're all so good.
They are.
They
You
are.
know?
You did good with this one. I give you 10 out of 10 for this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This and A Man Called Uva
Yeah. They will forever live in my head.
are great choices.
Yes. I loved this book.
So speaking of this book, did you all know it's a series?
Yes.
Yeah, there's
I noticed
4
that.
of
Oh,
them.
I thought there was 3.
There's 3 more, and so just real spoiler. At the end, where he says that he gives him the manuscript for the book, The Angel of the Mist.
Yeah.
The second book is called The Angel's Game.
Oh, interesting.
So I think if I read it correctly, it's supposed to be like generational. So they're going to go further into how these characters are more connected, but go into different people.
Are they
as the
still
main.
Are some of these characters still in it? I mean, like
I think if I'm reading it correctly, they are.
yeah, Nuria's dad has to be in it.
Right?
Isaac.
Isaac, yeah.
And I want to know about Daniel's dad. Because
Yeah.
he's there.
Yeah, but like how
But
is he
I want to know
involved?
if he has more.
Oh, I am curious to know about the music dude and Clara,
Oh, yeah.
because like that felt like it just
It was
like,
yeah, gonna be important, then it
and
wasn't.
then it wasn't.
And then it wasn't at all. Yeah.
So I wonder
Yeah.
if maybe the other ones will like circle them in somehow.
Yeah. Maybe.
If I have the mental fortitude, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
The last one on here says that it came out in 2016.
Oh, wow.
So he went 2001, 2008, 2011, 2016. So
Took a couple years for each book.
But I bet his publishers were like, "Hey, we need the
Yeah.
sequel
For sure.
for 7
I
years."
also do think that it feels like a standalone book. Like
It does.
It doesn't feel like it needs a sequel, but I'm glad that there is.
Yeah.
Well, and it's called the Cemetery of Forgotten Books series.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that is a major role in it because we get introduced to that. That's a major plot point.
I'm assuming that what's going to happen is we just learn about another book within the cemetery.
I'm
I'm assuming that's what's going to happen for each one.
That would be a natural
Yeah.
flow.
And Homeboy is now the leader. I don't remember his
Fermin?
name. Yeah, Fermin.
He is now in charge of that when Isaac dies. Yeah. So I am more curious about this sequel than I have been for previous ones.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But I did want to just briefly go into the Spanish Civil War because that is our setting, essentially. We do jump around a little bit. Like, we jump a little more forward in time. But that's like the epilogue type thing.
Yes.
So primarily we're in Barcelona, and from like 1936 to 1939 is where a good chunk of stuff happens. So I had to figure out who was the quote unquote bad guys, because for some reason fascists like to call themselves names that sound like good guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Nationalist Socialist movement sounds like a good movement.
Right? So the nationalist faction during the Spanish Civil War, right wing, super far right, they had allies in Germany and Italy.
Great.
As you can imagine. And this was right in that perfect time. There was lots of murdering, lots of killing of innocent people because they weren't agreeing with you. Yeah, it was an ugly time. And I did get that from the book. So you're not thrown completely in it, but you do get more of it than some of the other books we've read where they kind of just like touch on it.
Yeah.
This is like, no, like you could actually have a scene of this all of a sudden thrown in. It would make complete and total sense.
Especially with
Fumero.
Yeah.
There was just so much murder after the dictatorship was established that it really like shook the other fascists.
Yeah, which is
That's
wow.
saying some stuff.
You gotta be really, really bad.
Yeah. So I don't think that like Fumero was that far off of a real character.
Oh, I believe that.
So lots of people trying to take over after the Second Spanish Republic. So that is where we're at. That's the depressing state we're in.
So Spanish Civil War was what years?
36 to 39.
Okay. So the Julian Carax plot takes place during some of those years.
Yeah.
And then in current time is like 1950s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to list off some of the characters that you're going to hear.
Because there are characters.
And I got it down to 7 main people who changed the plot at some point or another.
Okay.
So in current time, you have Daniel Semper. I'm also going to mispronounce all of these because I'm a white person and I'm really, really sorry. Daniel Semper, he is the protagonist. He's the son of a bookseller. Big fan of books. You have Fermin, who is a homeless man who becomes an assistant at the bookshop. Daniel gets him a job there. And then you have Bea Aguilar. Thank you. Bea Aguilar. She is the sister of Daniel's best friend, Tomas, and the, love interest of Daniel. And then you have Léon Kubert, who is a mysterious stranger. He has been hunting down copies of Carax's work, specifically to burn them. Léon Kubert is a fake name. He took that from the character of the devil in Shadow of the Wind. Very mysterious. So then we go back in time to the 30s time period, and that who is in that area is Julian Carax. He is the author of a number of very hard to find books, including Shadow of the Wind, the book that this book is named after. He has a very weird, mysterious backstory. We have Bea. No, I already said Bea. We have Penelope Aldaya, who is the sister of Julian's friend, Jorge, and the love of Julian's life. And then sort of in between both of those is Inspector Fumero. He is a police officer. My description of him is huge asshole and fascist.
Absolutely
So
worst person ever.
he sucks. So I'm going to do my best with this, y'all. Buckle up. So Daniel's father, when he's 10 years old, takes him to the Cemetery of Forgotten Books. This is a bookshop where it's a very rare bookshop.
Book cemetery.
It is a book cemetery. So I think the description in the Wikipedia article is like labyrinthine. It is like,
I just imagined like where hobbits live, but like dirtier.
yeah, that's fair. So it's just like this huge, there are rare forgotten books here. And if a book speaks to you, you can take it. So he picks up the Shadow of the Wind by Julian Carax. It's a book he's never heard of before, but he's like, I want to read this one. Instantly obsessed with it. Reads it so quickly. He finds out that almost no copies of any Carax works still exist. So he's like, I'm going to figure out what's going on with that. All we really know on the surface level that he finds out in his preliminary research is that, no copies of his books still exist. He moved to Paris when he was young, and he died in a duel on the day of his wedding. That's kind of all that we know about him. Daniel then meets a connoisseur of rare books named Gustavo Barcelona. They are in Barcelona. Gustavo Barcelona, who offers to buy the book, but Daniel won't sell it. He says, I won't sell this for any price. And he accidentally falls in love with Clara, Barcelona's blind niece.
Who is 15 years older.
Yes, much older. And he is obsessed. And she's like, okay. So he becomes...
She's 10 years her senior.
Okay, but
years.
a decade
Still.
older. And he's like... And at this point, he's like 12, maybe?
Yeah, he's like, damn.
Yeah, he's like super young. And he shows up all the time, becomes kind of a good friend of the family. So this years and years and years pass. And then a random man whose face is badly burned shows up and offers to buy the book from him. And he calls himself Le Incubaire, which is the fake name, like I was saying. And he says that, like, with a smile on his face, he says that he wants to burn the copies of the book. And Daniel's like, no, weirdo. At this point, he has given the book to Clara, so he goes to get it from her because he's like, well, I'm worried that this guy is going to show up at her house. She is actively having sex with her music teacher, who gets really pissed off that Daniel has walked in while they're having sex, and tells him to, like, beat it, never come back here, beats the shit out of him. We meet Fermin, who is...
Fermin Romero de Torres.
Thank you. He has this very...
said his name.
We say his full name all the time. He says he's hiding from a cop, Inspector Fumero. And Daniel's like, okay, so he is prone to exaggeration. Sure, you're like... You have this specific feud with this very famous cop.
Yeah,
sure.
you were a spy.
Yeah.
You were a spy for
And,
the other
okay,
side.
sure, yeah.
You were held in prison for years. Okay. But he likes him. And so when they need an assistant at the shop, he's like, I'm going to go find this guy. So they do. They bring him in. And he becomes a very good friend of Daniel's. And he decides to help him investigate Karax. So now we're going to jump a little bit into... So this whole book is going back and forth between Daniel's current time and learning a ton of stuff about Julian. So this isn't necessarily going to go in the same exact order. I'm just doing my best here. So they find out that Julian was the son of a hatter and a French woman, Sophie Carax. And his dad was abusive and he worked at the shop, but he is welcomed into a wealthy family, the Aldaya family, when the patriarch, Mr. Aldaya, shows up because he has heard that this is the best shop and he wants a bunch of hats. And Julian is sarcastic to him, like, right away. And he's like, cool, no one else is anything except scared of me. You're chill. So he welcomes him into his family, invites him to his family, introduces him to his children, Jorge, who is about Julian's age, and Penelope, who is a little bit younger. Instantly, eyes lock. They're obsessed with each other.
They're getting married.
They
That's
are
what she
like,
says
yeah,
to
she
her
literally
lead.
is like, that's the man I'm going to marry. And she's like 12. So they both are like, they have had dreams about each other for years or whatever. There's a lot going on here. They obviously can't really do anything about this right now because they're young. And also he's like super poor and her dad will never allow it. So while they are in love, Aldaya gets Julian into the fancy school that Jorge goes to. So he makes this little group of friends. So it's including Jorge and a kid named Miquel Moliner.
Yeah.
Moliner.
That one was always a little hard.
Yeah. So Miquel Moliner and Javier, who nobody likes. He's kind of a weirdo. He is also obsessed with Penelope. There's another kid too who's a priest, but
Fernando Ramos.
Yeah, and he is so barely in this book, but he was such a nice kid.
He was a very nice
little
priest man.
kid. Yeah. So everything is going okay for a while. Javier shows up with a gun to school and tries to kill Julian. Everyone assumes that he was shooting at, I want to say Jorge.
Yeah.
Because he had been very embarrassed at Jorge's birthday party.
Right.
And
they thought it was like a class issue.
Yeah, so everyone was like, oh, well, obviously he's mad because the rich people made fun of him. But actually it was because he saw a look between Julian and Penelope and he was like, I'm going to kill that man because I'm obsessed with Penelope.
I think they were caught kissing. I thought he
Did
saw them.
he catch them kissing? Okay,
Yes.
so he catches them kissing.
He sees the look and is jealous, and then he sees the kiss later
loses
on.
his
and
mind.
then decides
and
to
loses his mind.
literally
Not
kill
that
him.
was hard for him.
No.
Yeah.
So he's kicked out of school, obviously. He goes on to become, wait for it, Inspector Fumero, who actually has been hunting Fermin. So at this point,
really
that shook me. So we do find out that he is Fumero, and we're like, wait a second, what? And then Fumero does end up showing up and like tell Fermin that he's gonna get him. And we're like, oh, wow, you were not lying. Okay, sick.
Yeah, the whole situation is very much a Jean Valjean and
Yes,
Javert,
yes.
which is sort of
Yeah.
important to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because of the pen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. Okay, I see where
Anyway.
you're going.
You can.
Well-
I didn't put any of. There's too much to talk about.
There's so much.
So you can talk about that.
Don't forget Victor Hugo.
Right now.
You could. Oh,
Okay,
you can
yeah,
talk about
sure.
it right
Okay,
now.
So when Daniel is a little boy, he walks by a store and sees a fountain pen in the window of the shop, and he's like obsessed with it, and his dad finally buys it for him on his 16th birthday. But the pen was said to have belonged to Victor Hugo, and Les Miserables was written
Yes,
with it
the
specifically.
pen.
With the pen.
That's pen.
So it's like, yeah, of course their lives would follow. I mean, damn, there be parallels in this fucking
so
book.
many parallels that
So-
they just kept going further in.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. There's like parallels of the parallels.
Yes.
It's
With
crazy.
So there
The
do be
parallels.
parallels
It's just
between Jean Valjean and Javert and Fumero and Fermin.
There's a lot of meta going on.
A lot of meta going on. So we find out that is actually a thing, and we are shooketh.
Yes, accurate.
Yes. So back in time again, Mikhail helped Julian and Penelope plan their escape. So they're going to elope because they're in love with each other and they have to leave. But they couldn't wait, and they hook up before they leave, and they get caught by her mom, who then loses her shit, tells Aldaya, Mr. Aldaya, and Penelope gets locked up in her room and cannot come to Julian. So Mikhail shows up and he's like, you got to leave, man. You got to get out of here. Because he gets kicked out of school as well. Because Mr. Aldaya is the only reason that he was allowed into the school, so he gets kicked out. So he leaves, and Mikhail tells him, write stories for me and write stories for Penelope. So this is sort of like why Julian has spent his life writing novels, was to write these sort of love songs to Penelope in the form of novels. Jorge is mad. He threatens Julian's life. And at this point, Danielle and Fermin are like, okay, so that's Liane Kubert.
Yeah.
Like there's a man out there trying to destroy Julian's work. It's got to be Jorge. So we go back to Daniel's time. We are looking for info, but he's also getting a crush on his best friend Tomas's sister Bea, who is a little scary, a little scared of her. But he also kind of like has a little thing.
That's exactly how I knew. I was like, oh, you're afraid of her? You're
Yeah.
totally in love
Well,
with her.
and
Got
it's
it.
like the parallels
Yeah.
with the whole relationship between Bea and Daniel is so parallel of Julian and Penelope.
Yes.
So like he has just learned that Julian had to leave the city because he hooked up with Penelope, who was then locked in her home. And then Daniel takes her out on a night, and then they go and hook up in the old Aldaya mansion. And I'm like, are you the dumbest person to ever exist?
they were so
Um,
oblivious
so
to like
I'm like,
everything.
the parallels in your life, this is your best friend's sister. That was his best friend's sister. What are we not seeing here? Anyway,
He's like, this book is clearly not the same.
This
as
isn't
my
about
life.
and
me.
And someone is like, hey, you remind me a lot of him.
oh my God, we're always saying that Daniel reminds people of Julian. And it's like, okay, buddy, I just need you to not speak to Bea until we resolve all this stuff. But he ignores me.
Yeah, he
and
really
then
didn't want to hear that.
No. So then he does end up, they hook up. So her dad's real estate firm is the one that owns the Aldaya mansion because it was vacated and no one wants to buy it. So they kind of go there for like secret little trysts. And then the first time that they're like, we're going to have sex now, they have sex and they are interrupted by not her mother, like in the Penelope Julian, but by Liane Kubert, who, Jorge makes sense in the Aldaya mansion is like, get the fuck out of this house, go away. And so they run away. Bea's in trouble because she gets home. She got in late, but she won't tell anybody who she was with. And then, of course, she's locked up by her family in her room. Fumero shows up and is, again, we're looking for Fermin. And we're like on high alert, like, oh no, the cop is here. So before this, some of the stuff that we have learned has come from Nuria Montfort, who is Isaac Montfort's daughter. Isaac Bonfort is the owner of, or the proprietor, I guess. I don't know if anyone owns the Cemetery of Forgotten Books.
They just kind of take care of it.
So he is the proprietor of the Cemetery of Forgotten Books. He had said, my daughter had worked in publishing, and she actually worked with the company that published Julian Carrex's novels. You should talk to her about more information. Daniel had met with her, and he had gotten like some information, but also had immediately verified that that information was false. Like she had said something about like her husband was in prison, and he could check and and that wasn't true. Like there was no.
And she was the owner of the P.O. box that
And
the
yes.
money was getting sent to pay for the childhood home of Julian Carrex.
Yes. So she is like very much involved in this, but has lied a lot about her involvement. So we decide that what we're going to do is he is going to go in and talk to her, and then Fermin is going to follow her and then see where she goes after she is confronted by Daniel. Oops, she shows up dead. And Fermin is the person that is framed for it. So obviously Fermin did not do this, but who else is following everybody involved in this story? It's Fumero. So like, come on, let's see what's up. So then she has died, and Daniel gets a book from her father that has a manuscript inside, right? It was from her father.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has a manuscript inside from her to Daniel, explaining the entire rest of the book. It explains literally everything in this fun little thing. So Julian was a bastard whose father was Mr. Aldaya. So that means that Penelope and Julian were brother and sister, actually, from a blood perspective.
And
she got pregnant.
I threw my book.
Yeah.
I had a book in my hand and I threw it. I was mad.
I was so shaken. So the Aldayas hid her in her room because she's pregnant with her half-brother's baby, and they don't help her. She goes into labor. They don't help her at all. They keep that door closed. Even as she's screaming and crying, she dies in childbirth.
She's hemorrhaging.
And the baby is stillborn.
Stillborn baby, dies in
They said that
childbirth.
If a doctor had been allowed to see her,
Yep.
That the doctor would have known that the baby's like umbilical cord was around its neck
Yep.
like several days before this happens, and so like the baby could have lived and she could have lived.
Yep.
But instead, the parents just let them both die.
Yep.
Mostly
So,
the dad.
The dad, for sure.
I don't think the mom
The
could
mom
have gotten past that dad anyway.
wasn't in it, really. She was kind of out of it the whole time. So before her death, they made her write a letter to Julian saying that she didn't want to be with him, which didn't get to him.
No. It got to the caretaker of
That's right.
his father's apartment.
Yeah. So
all of the clues.
Yeah. So he never got it. So he is just assuming that she is alive this whole time.
For like how many decades?
I think it's 17 years.
Yeah.
Because he was 17 when he left, and it had been 17 years when he comes back.
He was supposed to be fairly young looking, but he couldn't be.
So he wrote all of these books that Mikel financed for Penelope, because he just was like, this is how I write for her.
I can
basically
only communicate with her through
Yeah,
books. So
through these books.
So all these books are dedicated to her.
Yep. And so Mikel, so like, they don't really get, like, the publisher was really screwing him. And they were like making money, but not giving it to him. But he didn't really care. He just needed these books to be published into the world. Mm-hmm. So he had left. He had gone to Paris. So he does spend many years in Paris. He is a piano player at a brothel. That's just how he makes his money, because he does not make a lot of money publishing books. And the owner of the brothel, the madam, really likes him. So she's about to die, and she's like, let's get married, so all my stuff goes to you. Fair
That's
enough.
what trips us up really hard at the beginning. We're like, wait.
Yeah, I know, because like, why would he be marrying someone when he was in love with Penelope? And it's literally just so that he could have all her stuff. So Fumero hears about this, and obviously wants him dead.
Creates this master plan.
Yeah, he's like 16 steps ahead. So he convinces Jorge Aldaya, because Jorge Aldaya and the Aldaya fortune has crumbled at this point. It was like poisoned basically by this act to kill their daughter by accident. So Fumara's like, hey, we hate that guy, right? You should go kill him before he gets married. So Aldaya dies in the duel, not Julian. Julian escapes. He gets back to Barcelona and he finds out that Penelope and their baby died in childbirth and she was dead the entire time. So he kind of loses his freaking mind.
Yeah.
So he is the one. We had learned about this guy who we assumed was Jorge Aldaya, who had called and asked to buy the copies of the books. And they had said, no, we'll think about it. Maybe if you give us some more money. The next day, their publishing house burns down, including all of the books. We had thought, I mean, they lead you to believe that that is Jorge Aldaya, the brother, who is, likening himself to Lion Kubert. But actually, that was Julian Carax, because his love for Penelope was in all of these books and she was dead the entire time. So he's just like, he hates himself. That's kind of, where he puts his entire soul. So he just decides to destroy all of his books. Miquel is actively dying of TB. It was very silly. He shows up and he's dying of TB, tuberculosis. And Julian's like, how are you okay? And he goes, I've just got a fever. The man is a zombie, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not convincing anybody.
Is like only 125 pounds, can barely breathe.
Yeah,
is
and he's
coughing
like,
all the time.
I've got a
It's just
fever.
a bad cold.
Yeah. Yeah, sure, buddy. So he finds Julian. There's a huge manhunt for him. And he finds him, takes his papers to make the cops believe that he is, in fact, Julian Carax. Julian escapes and he shoots cops.
Yeah, to prevent.
To make them kill him with his papers on him. And then they're like, we got him. We got that Carax fella.
Was a saint.
Yes, literally.
Yeah.
So Nuria actually was married to Miquel.
Mm-hmm.
And they loved each other, but Miquel was in love with her and she was always in love with Julian.
Of course.
But also Miquel was kind of always obsessed with Julian.
And Miquel
So
was also
they-
obsessed with Julian.
They
So
were both obsessed with Julian and were so lonely because they couldn't
couldn't be with him.
him.
Yeah.
So they
And
just sort of
so
are like,
they're lonely together.
yeah. So so Julian goes to her and they just kind of pretend that he's Miquel.
Yeah. Because it makes
Because
the most sense.
I mean, he got his face burned off by the publishing fire. So he's not recognizable. So you can just be like, yeah, that's my husband who's dying of TB, just like he was last week, except now he looks totally different, but that's because of the TB, right?
And it helps because she just takes care of him.
And she just takes
no
care
one
of him.
sees
So he doesn't really go out, he's just in his house. So years and years and years, he spends hunting down the novels to destroy the remaining evidence for his fruitless love of Penelope. And he learns about Daniel. So when Daniel was young and a stranger with a scarred face approaches him and says, I want to buy all of your books, or, I want to buy this book that you have, the Julian Carax book. And he says, no, I love this book. I would never sell it for any price. That sort of touches him. He's like, oh, someone loves my book.
Yeah.
That kind of he's like, okay.
That's when he starts to change back into a person.
Yeah,
again.
he's like, okay. And he does kind of low-key stalk Daniel for years
Yeah.
after this.
Yep.
He's
Maine
like,
was
okay.
He lost his mind.
He did. So he knows everything about what has happened up until this point. So he knows about the situation with Bea. She is locked up, just like Penelope. And Daniel finishes reading this entire thing by Nuria, and he's like, okay, I need to go see Bea right now. So he goes.
Finally realizes the parallels.
Yeah, I know. So he shows up and Tomas is there and he's like, what did you do with Bea? She's pregnant and we can't find her. So she's pregnant just like Penelope. And he gets his shit rocked by Tomas, who beats him up. But he's like, I know exactly where she is. She's at the Aldai mansion, the safe place where we used to hook up. Also, there's a blizzard going on this entire time. Just know that. That's a whole thing. But so he gets to the Aldaya mansion. Bea is there, and she's like, Carax has been here. He is here. He took care of me. He like gave her a little blanket and gave her food to eat and stuff. And she says he was waiting for you and also waiting for the man who followed you. And he's like, what are you talking about? I don't know. Maybe Fumero has been stalking us this entire time.
I'm pretty sure that they specifically state Fumero is going to use you to
Yes,
Literally,
to find all of the people involved.
Literally, we
He
tell
just
him
was like-
that, and he's like, who followed me here? Anyway, so Fumero shows up. There is a tussle, and Fumero is killed, sick, and Daniel is shot. So he, like, almost dies. He like,
does the
sees...
Mikkel thing, but as
Yeah.
a younger guy.
Yeah, there's just the parallels.
There's a lot of dying for Julian.
Yeah. So Daniel wakes up 8 days later. He was in a little coma, which some of us need sometimes, you know. Fumero
Honestly,
is
yeah.
dead. Carax has vanished, and everyone's like, we don't know where he went. He's gone. He
God
left in the
damn it.
blizzard.
They like assumed he died.
They
Some
assumed
of them
that he
did because he was bleeding.
Yeah, he was bleeding. They assumed that he died, especially because, again, there was a blizzard going on. Daniel gets to marry Bea. Yay! They have a baby boy, and they name him, of course, Julian.
I was like, there's no way that's not happening.
No, I knew that.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh.
When I was reading the Nuria's manuscript, and it says that Penelope's baby's name was David, I was like, wait, the protagonist is David.
No.
But no, it's Daniel.
Yeah,
But I was
word.
like,
Oh, the irony of
yeah.
The irony.
So then when Daniel's baby is named Julian, I was like, hey, that
But one
one's-
actually
that
is.
one's real.
And yeah, so many years later, Carax publishes another novel. And Daniel was, when he was in his coma, he wakes up and Julian is there, and he hands Julian the pen of Victor Hugo, because in Nuria's book, she says that like she bought that for him and they had to sell it because they were poor as hell. So that's why it ended up in the shop that then Daniel got. So he looks at Julian and he says, this was always yours. Hands him over the book, or hands him over the pen. And then years later, he gets this manuscript that was very clearly written in that pen, and it's dedicated to Daniel, basically for bringing him back to life, like making him like able to write more books. I do not know how long that was. Too long, probably. So I do apologize.
Oh, and then it ends many more years later with Daniel taking
his son Julian to the
the
cemetery of forgotten books. It's cyclical. That's where we
it's a
started.
cyclical cycle of cycles.
And I didn't even talk about half the stuff that happened in
There's
that
a
book.
lot of layers.
Yeah.
There are so many layers. So, first impressions. I guess you're in charge here.
Yeah.
But first impressions.
Hold on. There was a description of the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like this. Okay. This is a place of mystery, a sanctuary. Every book, every volume you see here has a soul. The soul of the person who wrote it and of those who read it and lived and dreamed with it. Every time a book changes hands, every time someone runs his eyes down its pages, its spirit grows and strengthens. This place was already ancient when my father brought me here for the first time many years ago, perhaps as old as the city itself. Nobody knows for certain how long it has existed or who created it. I will tell you what my father told me, though. When a library disappears or a bookshop closes down, when a book is consigned to oblivion, those of us who know this place, its guardians, make sure that it gets here. In this place, books are no longer remembered by anyone. Books that are lost in time live forever, waiting for the day they will reach a new reader's hands. In the shop, we buy and sell them, but in truth, books have no owner. Every book you see here has been somebody's best friends. Now they only have us. And I was like, man, that is such...
It's such an interesting premise.
Yeah, because it's like, it's literally just like a library full of books that no one, that have like aged out of society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just it's just a bunch of random books, and there's
Yeah.
no way of like no real like system for shelving them. They just get
No.
thrown places.
Yeah.
They're
and-
like, not to bring up Harry Potter, but this very much felt like the room of requirement
Yes.
where we hid the diadem, or where the diadem was hidden that we eventually get. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was picturing the whole time.
Yeah, it's like spirals that lead to nowhere.
Yeah.
And then
You get full lost.
it's crazy. He has to like carve into the shelves
Yep.
to find his way around.
Yep.
So that he can look for his mark. I loved it.
Yeah. First impressions, I was very much thinking this would be a little bit more magical.
I
I also thought
was
that.
when the first time we see Colbert, I was like, wait, is the book coming true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's what I was also kind of like.
Like as
Wondering.
you read it, are the plot points of the book going to happen
Right.
to Daniel?
Right.
I think it's very interesting. We actually didn't really get the plot of Shadow of the Wind. I think we get like a one brief sentence.
Yeah, the main character finds out when his mom dies that his dad isn't his dad, and so he has to find his dad, and
Yeah.
then the devil is trying to stop him, which is also related to Julian's
story.
real life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
The parallels.
But then I was reminded. So I picked up this little tiny book, which is a very common thing I've been saying recently. It takes place in Paris. I think it's The Girl Who Reads on the Metro or something like that.
Sure.
But she is really hates her job. She's on the Metro noticing people reading books. She just like observes a lot. She gets pulled into this random little side street bookshop, but it's just like a door, and she goes in and there's just books everywhere,
Nice.
and it's her task then to give those books to the people who need them,
Oh.
but it's all just random books.
I love that.
So it kind of gave me that vibe, but that one had a little bit more more magical realism to it, because
Mhm.
like the books kind of just appeared.
Right. So sort of
there.
like did you tell me to read that one? The library one, the What You Need Is at the Library?
Yes.
Yeah. Where
There's a lot of books just appearing in random libraries.
yeah.
So
I
I'm
love
like,
that.
I hope this is real. But it kind of started to give me that vibe. So I was just really curious where everything was going to go. And it went way further than I thought it could have ever gone.
Yeah, so when I started, I thought that this was going to be like Princess Bride. Like,
Oh.
I thought that we were going to get,
Oh.
like, because I was like, oh, this is called The Shadow of the Wind,
yeah,
because the book is called Shadow of the Wind, and the beginning of it is telling you how he found this book. And then at no point were we like, did we get like a single page of Shadow of the Wind? And I was like, okay. There were other Princess Bride similarities, though,
Yeah.
which is very silly. But I fully thought that it was going to be like, he reads a whole chunk of it and then does something else. And then it was
Yeah.
like, no, throw that away. We're finding out all about the author of the book.
yeah. And then I thought about I love it when they tell us the plot of the
Yeah.
story
Yeah,
within another
yes.
story at the beginning of the story.
Yes.
I thought of you saying that exactly.
And then that sort of happened, just like it was drawn out through the whole book.
Yeah.
As it was like Mamma Mia 2,
Yeah.
where like the things that were happening to Donna were happening to Sophie, kind of side by side each
Yeah.
other.
Oh,
So
that
like,
was this entire book. And that's again why, like, when he like goes to hook up with his girlfriend literally right after he found about Penelope and Julian, I was like, what's wrong with you? That I
think
wrote.
that's one of the notes I wrote down was like, they're not seeing exactly what they're
No.
being
No,
told.
I know. I wrote screaming at Daniel.
The one thing that I really, really loved was I was able to figure out who Leon Kubert was before
Nice.
they revealed it, and I
Oh,
can never do that. I'm
I-
so bad at that.
immediately was like, so it's Carrick's.
I had an inkling that it wasn't Jorge.
Yeah.
Like they assume, like Daniel and Fermin assume that it's Jorge.
Yeah.
I didn't try to figure out who it was. I was just vibing. I was just like, well, that's not, I mean, like, you want me to think that, but this is like a mystery book.
Yeah.
But then I just threw that out of my brain.
So
and then,
so when they said it's Jorge, I was like, clearly it's not Jorge. But then I just kept like, going through the book. But then I had this random aha moment. I wrote down this note that Julian is Leon.
yeah.
And then I threw that note away because that was like stupid.
Girl.
And I was like, oh my God, I was right. Because I'm usually never able to figure things out before they happen.
Yeah.
It was when they were at the movie theater and Fermin goes to get candy and Kuber comes up to Daniel and threatens him.
Yeah. As you do.
Yeah. I was like, no.
Yeah.
That's Carax.
Now that you say that, I forgot about that scene because it would have really picked up when I read it in Nuria's manuscript when she talked about them always meeting at the theater.
Yeah.
I forget so many things.
I know. Well, I mean, that's the biggest thing is like, I wasn't trying to unpack any of the mysteries
There's
really
no
because
way
there's
you could've.
too much. There's
And
too much.
Yeah, and they're going on at the same time, but there's slight tiny little differences.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
it's like even if you were trying to figure out one, you'd get the other wrong.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. So
I was just
it
like,
would be a nightmare to try to
it was
figure
just,
it out.
yeah.
When they revealed Fumero and like his last name, I was like, no, that makes sense.
I was
That
like,
makes sense. He's a crazy person.
I heard that and I was pretty sure that, because he didn't say, because we're getting the story at that point from the priest who is the other friend.
He's like, it's Javier.
And he like mentions like, he just calls him like Javier. And then later at the end, he says like, oh, he, Javier Fumero, he became a cop or whatever. And like, so he doesn't realize that he's dropping this huge bomb.
Yeah, no.
And I was like,
Earth shattering.
I was like shaken, but I was like, wait, am I making that up? Because I'm not like reading the book. So I'm just have to like make sure that I'm like hearing the names. And I was like, what if he said a name that is really similar to Fumero?
There were so many F names.
Yes. Yes.
There was
also
Francisco and Fumero.
Don
and
Federico,
Federico,
which
yeah.
we do have to take a slight Happy Pride Month. We have to talk about Don Federico.
Gay.
Gay as hell. And also beloved, by the way, like in this time of fascists like absolutely hating queers. I mean, they say that. Yeah. Like Fumero is constantly like, I hate queers and
beat
blah,
the
blah, blah.
crap out of him.
Don Federico is in prison for drag. Literally I can't remember the name of his drag persona, but it was so funny. It was so funny.
It was one of those things I wrote down.
Yeah. He is in prison for drag, literally. And wait, what are you saying?
No, I wrote a note down because I was so angry. I was like, how are a bunch of straight men going to hate someone for being gay and then rape him and think that is...
Yeah, no. That
what?
Because it's about power. It's
know,
not about sexuality.
I know. It was just like I was so pissed off.
So
that poor man.
He is in prison for drag. So this is in Daniel's time. Fumero is the one that, puts him in prison. And
of course,
everyone is so upset. And so one of their neighbors comes in and is so upset by this. And I loved this quote. I wrote this down. She says, what we need is a bit more Christian charity and less spitefulness. Everybody goes to mass, but nobody pays any attention to the words of our Lord Jesus Christ. In defense of the queer man. She's like, if people listen to Jesus Christ, they'd be okay with this gay guy. And also at the end, they live together forever. I don't know what her deal is. I don't know if she's queer at all, but she knows that he's queer, but they're just like buddies,
roommates.
Yeah. And yeah, he hooks up with men or whatever. And also there was like a point where they're hiding in Don Federico's house.
Yeah.
And
because Fermin has been framed for the death of
and they're like, we have to go somewhere that no one's going to expect us. And Fermin is like, oh yeah, we're in like his little love nest, but whatever. Like they do not give a shit that this is a gay guy's love nest. They're like, whatever. He's protecting us.
He specifically is like, other people would think of this as a bachelor's, like blah, blah, blah. And he's like, but we don't.
Yeah.
Like, he's always a little extra.
Oh my God, Fermin is so extra.
He's also a womanizer.
He is, but he
monogamous
finds his love. He is now a monogamous womanizer.
Oh, that was also, I definitely wrote down, this is such a dude's book. Because every description of a sexual situation or the way that they interacted with women was just so toxic masculine.
Yes.
And then all the major masculine characters were so angry and violent.
Yeah.
And I was just like, God,
yeah, Daniel
if
is
you could
just
breathe.
like, I am fantasizing about tearing her clothes off and taking her right here on the floor. And then
Like-
Fumero is like, oh, I wanted to stab my knife into her back
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
to show her like the power of a real man
Yeah.
and to
It
get
was
her under my manipulation instead of
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
It was
gross.
It was a lot. But
Yeah.
again, big gay cheers for Don Federico.
Yes. No, I give that 100%. Oh, another weird, funny thing when they go to find Jacinta, who is the caretaker of Penelope when she is a child. First off, they end up in it's pretty much a asylum sanatorium.
Yes.
So it's gross and awful and just terrible. And they promise this guy to bring him a hooker.
Yes, they do.
in order
to find where
figure
Jacinta
out where
is.
Jacinta is. And they've delivered. Like,
They
they
do.
did not leave that. He did not leave
It
that
was-
out. He was like, nope, we're going to make this happen.
On the night before Daniel and Bea get married, Fermin goes and is like, okay, man, it's the bachelor night. Come on, let's go. And he brings them to some hookers and he's like, I'm not comfortable with this. He's like,
this is not my vibe.
shut up. He gets this prostitute and he's like,
That he
this
knows
isn't
well.
Yeah, he knows her very well. And she's like, why aren't you coming back to me? And he's like, I am unfortunately very monogamous now. But he gets her and he's like, and Daniel's like, oh, Fermin never goes back on a promise. And they bring her literally to this house. And then they get to go see Jacinta one more time.
Yeah.
But
Well,
she died.
She's died.
She
by then.
died. But they
Oh
find
my
out
God.
that Julian visited her.
Jacinta, when the nun was telling us about what Jacinta said when she left, it was like she
Yeah.
finally gets to go be with Penelope.
She's going to be with her
and
daughter.
I was like, I am not okay.
I was not okay.
That was a good moment in all of this mess because Jacinta and Mikel were like angels. Like they were
Yes.
just complete saints. They just wanted them to be able to be in love.
Yep.
And they get these horrific outcomes. Mikel gets murdered. He also gets shot when he's a kid.
Yeah.
And Jacinta gets pushed
Literally
out
tucked away.
into the sanatorium because what is it? Aldaya decides that he doesn't want to see her on the street anymore, so he just calls the police on her. I was like, wow.
Well, because she wouldn't stop asking for Penelope.
Well, if he would have just told her that she was murdered
Mm-hmm.
by you,
By you.
but whatever.
But yeah, so then they just
it was
they're the worst
crazy.
because Mr. Aldaya did know that Penelope and Julian were brother and sister, but just didn't tell anybody. So he kind of went a little off the wall there. Oh yeah, the Princess Bride similarities that I spotted. So yeah, book within a book, even though we don't get like the full book, it is still a book within a book. And then the scene where Aldaya comes into the hat shop and he's this very scary rich man that's like, I've heard that you're the best hatter in town. Make me a hat, is so Inigo Montoya's dad with Count Rugen, like where, and it ends up a lot better,
Yeah.
you know, for Daniel and his father, or for Julian and his father. But yeah, it's literally just like Count Rugen shows up and is like, you have to make me this fancy sword. And he's like, but I am just, I'll make the best sword that I possibly can. I am humble. And then also at some point, Daniel literally says to Bea, as you wish. And I was like, okay, all right. I'm not leaping anymore. I was a little bit with the first two.
It was so disheartening to learn that Aldaya genuinely didn't have good motives with
I know. That was a
providing
bummer.
Julian like an education. I was like,
That he literally only came to the hat shop because he knew that was his bastard son.
Yeah.
That was a bummer.
and he was like, "Oh, I don't like Jorge. He's not
Yeah, it
doing
was
a good
basically
enough
like
job."
the heir ain't doing his job. I need the spare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It
literally.
was very much that.
like Volcano Daughters.
Like the Volcano
Yeah.
Daughters. Literally like the
Just
Volcano Daughters.
Also
The
terrible.
parallels.
All of them.
Don Federico's drag name was the Lady of the Curls.
The Lady of the Curls.
I wonder how that translates because I wonder if it's like something slightly more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
We
he
just
like
had a
full
conversation
on.
about translations.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
The Lady of the curls.
I loved this book. I was going insane. I was like, I have to talk about this book right now.
When I came in, was it Friday? I don't know. You were 2 hours away from finishing the book. You had that eye, those like
Yeah.
crazy eyes when you're like, this is gonna kill me if
Well,
I don't
because-
finish what happened.
Yeah, because that's in the middle of Nuria's
Yeah.
whole thing, and
Which
she is
the whole story.
which is the whole story. But like you're finding out in this moment that she did because she had told him the first time that she sees Daniel, she's like, "Oh, I barely knew Julian. Yeah, I stayed at his apartment for 1 week one time, but that was just chill. We were just friends." And I don't even know if we knew the name of her husband at that point.
No.
She just says that her husband, but then we find out she is married to Mikael, and she has all of this backstory with Julian, and also Julian Carax knows who you are and offered to buy books from you.
Yeah.
You've met him. He's been here literally the whole
The
time.
whole time. I did like
I was losing my
how,
mind.
The author, like slowly revealed that Julian was still alive. Like,
Yeah.
that took a
Yeah.
hot minute for that to come to fruition. But as soon as it started, I was like,
I know.
"Oh!"
Once it was like Aldaya died and then he escaped, I was like, uh-huh.
Tell me more.
Tell me more. Because that's one of the two things that we know about him,
Yeah.
you know?
And then Fumero, when Mikael dies in Julian's stead,
Mm-hmm.
Fumero looks and is like, that's not Julian.
Yeah.
And so he's like, this gives me a great opportunity
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
no one cares about a man with no name.
That is correct.
So I can kill him and no one will be able to accuse me of it because they don't know who he is.
because he doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
He doesn't exist.
Yeah.
When they were like talking about that, because that was separate from Nuria's thing, when they were starting to just be like, oh, he never came to see the body. His father never
Oh
came.
no, his father did go
But his
see the
father
body.
did come, and he just looked at it and he walked away. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's not him.
Yeah.
And I was just
I
like,
know.
It says he screams and walks away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
it's like it's a laugh. He
Well-
looks at it and it's like more of a laugh, like a
because he's like, oh,
Oh,
I know what's
that's
happening.
My
not
son
my
is not
son.
dead. And-
but the cops are like,
oh well,
well,
he's
he
an asshole.
screamed, so-
And because like someone came to him and was like, oh, is Julian Carax here? I think that was Nuria and Mikael were like, is Julian here? And he says, I have no son. And
Yeah.
it's because he's being an asshole so that everyone will go away because he's actually keeping Julian in his house.
Yep. And he is rude to the flower seller
Yep.
across the street because he's trying to get inside the mansion.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so like he's the Hatter, Julian's dad, not a good guy. He was abusive to his wife for many, many years and a
Yeah.
dick to Julian. But he, had a redemption at the end of the book.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Yeah,
I think
when
it-
Julian comes back from Paris, he is like, I want to make up
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
time that I lost
All the
with
stuff.
you and make up with you for the way that I treated you. And
Yeah.
he did have a nice.
It was
very nice.
Barcelo, that was the one who said that everyone, or like anytime that like a man is painted as like a complete monster, I always want to hear a little bit more or something along those lines,
Mhm.
because there's always a chance that they are just piling on top of what they've heard
Yeah.
about a person. And I was like, okay, but I need to know more about him. So I don't know if he was as terrible as he was painted, because everything up until that point they said was not firsthand. It was
Yeah.
all just speculation. So I'm
Mhm.
like, maybe to a degree he wasn't as awful
Yeah.
as they all said he was, because it's really unusual, at least in stories, for them to go from being the most abusive religious man alive to I'm trying to like save your life.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just I felt like there was more
Yeah.
to that we weren't quite getting.
Yeah, like if we had gotten, instead of from Nuria's point of view, if we
Mhm.
had gotten it from Julian's, it might not have been
Yeah.
quite as dramatic, because
Yeah.
everyone like hears the rumor, adds to it.
And when you walk into a room with a bunch of crucifixes, it's kind of
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just like one of the things about this book was hearing all of these things secondhand or third hand or fourth hand from all of these people,
Mhm.
and then finding out that something that you heard wasn't true.
Mhm.
Like, it was so good.
It was.
Yeah.
It did a really good job of.
I
Like,
loved that.
It's very close, but not quite.
but not quite. Like once we
little
start
detail.
hearing Nuria's actual story, when she like writes this whole manuscript to him, I was like, yes, because she did such a good job of like, you know, what she told him wasn't quite true.
Right.
It was true in a sense.
Mhm.
But like on like the bare surface, except the
Yeah.
fact that her husband was in prison, which he wasn't, he was dead.
Yeah.
But that's irrelevant. But like, you know, the little pieces that were true, all those pieces that were just like, yeah. But then she like fleshes it out.
I
It's like,
stayed at his Paris apartment for a week.
exactly.
That happened.
And it did happen.
Correct.
And
Except that
were
they had a
lovers.
lot of sex. But he was still totally in love with Penelope,
Well,
obviously.
yeah.
And
Who
then
was
she
dead, but he didn't know that.
he didn't know that.
And then she didn't know that, and then she did know that.
I think there's a movie of this.
Is there?
I think, well, I typed in Shadow of the Wind summary, and it was like Shadow of the Wind movie. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know if I would like to watch this, because movies...
Oh, it's 1980. Oh, no, that's a totally different. So probably not.
Movies don't do good with
I want
complex.
a like a limited series.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, the Angel Game is a prequel.
What?
And then the third in the series is a sequel. So what's the Angel Game about? Who's the main characters of Angel Game?
Tell me now.
Tell me. Oh, it does not go into nearly as much detail.
It's set in the
1920s and 30s.
Follows David Martin.
So that's like the same time period as the.
It's like right before up until
'Cause-
Julian Carax's life.
Because Julian. It's 1917 when Penelope dies.
1919 when Penelope dies, she was 17.
Yes.
Yes. So
it's like
1919.
it's right. It's
Yeah.
kind of like right after he moves to Paris.
Yes. Yep. Right after he moves to Paris, and basically during the entire time that he's in Paris, because
Yeah.
he's 17 years there.
Mhm.
Interessant. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to read that.
Also, give me Fermin's book.
Right.
Yeah. Word.
What's he up to?
What's he up to? Fermin was so funny.
He was
He was just like,
ridiculous.
he always said his full name, which was a fake name. And when Fumero said like the name that he knew him under, it was also ridiculously long. So he just like makes up these very elaborate names, and he goes so ham for them.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
He was such a weirdo.
I like everyone was like, that sounds like a bullfighter's name, and he was like, and I saw this on a bullfighter's.
Yeah, he did.
poster.
He fully stole it from a bullfighter, but he's like, it's a good name, and I'm gonna say it again and again and
In
again.
full. Yeah, and then he's watching the movies and he's like, wow, movies are going to ruin the country. And then he sees a woman with big titties and he's like, actually, movies are great.
Movies are the best, literally. He's just like, you know what? No, you got me there.
So the Prisoner of Heaven is a direct sequel.
Yes.
And is about potentially the Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh.
Because it's an expensive copy that's on display behind the counter and is being asked for by a mysterious man.
Interesting.
But it is a direct. It's like a couple years after.
Mm-hmm.
So
nice.
I might read that one before I read a prequel companion piece.
We'll see. I got too many books. What?
It says while in prison, Fermin was inspired by the story of the Count of Monte Cristo, and that's how he escaped.
Nice.
From jail.
I love that.
Oh.
Wait, so is the prequel about Fermin?
No, I don't think the prequel's about David something.
Oh, okay.
A completely different. I think there's still relations, but it's different.
When
people.
Daniel is running the bookshop and Fermin is the proprietor of the cemetery.
That's when
when that one happens.
Yeah,
okay.
the Prisoner of Heaven.
Okay.
But we get more.
But we get more Fermin.
That's what I want.
I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the Count of Monte Cristo.
I
neither.
love the Count of Monte Cristo. I talked about it on the radio. One of my first ones. I love that book. Don't physically read it.
Oh, I
listen to an audiobook.
Never.
I tried to physically read it, but it's really, really dense. But it's like, I've described it as like Three's Company in the antics, because basically what happens is he was in love with a woman, and then he got a couple people like basically wanted him gone. So they got him accused of a crime and sent to prison for like life. So he's in prison and he makes friends with the his cellmate, who was like, I've got a huge fortune. Just know that. It's buried. No one knows where it is. And then he kind of like tells him his whole life story about like, well, I got sent to prison for a crime I didn't commit and my life is entirely ruined. They plan his escape. He escapes prison, and this guy's like, I'm going to die in prison. Here's exactly where my entire fortune is. You can have it. The entire rest of the book is him using that fortune to ruin all the lives of the guys who ruined his life. But what he does is he like sets up all of these fictitious people. Oh man, I wish I still had that list. He has like 5 different personas that he will like, you know, he's just like wearing a mask, wearing a different mask, wearing a hat. And he like creates these elaborate situations where he might be talking to someone about how great this third person is. That person is just him in a different mask. He is just like...
Oh, so it's kind of like the, in Avatar The Last Airbender, the Hugh, Lu, and Shu on the island with the painted lady.
Oh,
where
yes,
he's like,
yes.
He literally just like ducks behind the counter and puts on a different hat and is like,
it's literally
I'm the brother now.
Just like that, except that he has like a priest persona. He has like a wealthy gentleman persona. I think he has like pirate persona. But he like entrenches all of those people so well into the society that no one knows that it's him. And so he does, you know, he does good things for some of the guys that were good to him. And he just completely ruins the men who ruined his life. But it's like, it's like funny in the way that like Jane Austen is funny, you know, where there are like actual like jokes. Yeah. But like if you're trying to read it and you don't get the cadence, you're fucked. So I love that book. I think it's really long audiobook. It's really big physical book, but
it's why I've never paid any attention to it, because I know how big it is.
Yeah, I had such a great time. I loved it. I don't know that that's a book that a lot of people say that about, but I think a lot of people try to physically read it. It's just like Jane Austen.
Yeah.
Listen to it.
Yeah.
Okay. What's our one?
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah, July. So July 29th, we will be discussing Bitter Orange Tree by, I really should have looked up this one. Joka Al-Harthi. It's from Oman. It is
nice.
another historical fiction, but it's past and present. That is all the information I have.
Okay.
I apologize. I have no idea what else is going on with this book.
YOLO. But you said it's probably going to be pretty sad.
It's historical fiction. It's usually pretty sad.
Yeah.
Oman's also a tiny country, so that's probably tragedy. It's okay.
The book that I have from Oman is called I Am Najud, 10 and Divorced. And it's about a little girl who got child married but got legally divorced at 10
Oman
years old.
is
Tell us
right
about
next to the UAE.
Yeah.
So, and Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is here. Here's Yemen. Here's Oman. And then the UAE is right here. They're that little peninsula, and it's all broken up.
Got it.
I didn't know that. I had to look it up.
The snow.
Oh, they could get hit if Israel keeps attacking Iran. So keep that in mind. Oh, Kuwait is really, really tiny. Okay. So Kuwait is smaller than Oman. I didn't know this. I don't know the Middle East that well.
I don't either.
That's because they don't let us learn about it because they're just terrorists.
That is correct.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
See you next time.
Yeah, that one.
See you next time.
The suppression, the use of marijuana.
This podcast was brought to you in part by KCUN
Yeah, we could say that.
Please tell me you recorded that.
89.3 FM KCUN.
Perfect.